everybody. Welcome into episode 3 of the Sideline Until NBA podcast. It's been a little while since we recorded, but as always, I am Jeff Griffith alongside Jacob Rosenfarb. Jacob, how have you been? It's been about 2 weeks since our last episode. How you doing?
I've been good, Jeff. I've been good. It's been an emotional couple weeks. It's been an important couple weeks, but yeah, basketball's back, and that means we're back.
Yeah, we are. It feels a little odd being back. We both discussed that last week. I mean, the biggest reason we didn't record was because the NBA, had its momentary shutdown in the wake of the Jacob Blake shooting. With players kind of in a sense boycotting, calling for action from both the NBA and the owners. Had a couple of days off, and then we were back in the thick of it. And I got to ask you, Jacob, does it almost feel like the conversation came and went like that in a sense?
That is a troubling reality, I think, Jeff, is that we do the moment, I think, passed kind of quickly. I think the conversation was intense there for a couple of days, and there did seem like there was meaningful action in the works, and then I think the pressure got a little relieved, and as a result, maybe some of those actions that we thought were going to happen never really truly came to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, the players, I don't say they seem satisfied, because I could see them acquiescing, but they didn't seem prepared to acquiesce. So something must have happened that satisfied the players to the point of acquiescing is not the right word, but you know what I mean, right?
Sounds smart, though. It sounds like a smart word.
Oh, thanks.
The NBA players, from everything I've learned, got advice from leadership that their power lied most in their ability to play, and that being out on the court was the most viable way to bring awareness to the issues that they had presented. I'm not sure if I agree with that sentiment.
Right.
I think a strike is what they were effectively doing. That's only truly effective if the long-term repercussions are felt. If money starts leaving people's pockets, and I think that's when action truly gets done. And we hadn't quite reached that point yet. And so we were talking about this a little off camera, but I think we're both a little bit frustrated and maybe a little disappointed with the current action and kind of the current direction where things are going. I think there looks like to be a lot of hope. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, I was disappointed by Milwaukee and Wisconsin as a whole, kind of the legislature that went down there. And Kyle Korver came out as he was disappointed in the sort of dismissal of many of the claims that Bucks players had made. And so it's interesting to have the NBA back for sure. I hope we're better as a country for it, but I'm not positive.
No, I would echo you for sure, in the sense that it's like we've talked about this, and this is another thing you mentioned that was worth noting. The biggest thing we talked about with the quote unquote strike was the idea of it taking attention, like basketball takes attention away from what these guys are, what I shouldn't say what just these guys are passionate about, what we all are passionate about, we want to see changed. And now we're going to have hockey playoffs and baseball playoffs and the freaking NFL and 3 leagues of college football on the Power 5 level, like all playing at the same time, all drawing national attention away from a huge audience, because sports, the community of sports, is going to focus on all those things. I mean, I'm going to do it. You're going to do it. We're doing it right now. We're having a basketball podcast. So it is interesting that the direction taken was you're most effective when you're on the court, in front of the fans, etc. When in reality, it feels like the biggest reason they wanted to walk out was to shift the conversation elsewhere.
It's a great point. It's a curious decision by NBA leadership. I trust them, though. I think these guys have had a lot of fantastic ideas, and they've made strides both on the surface in terms of putting Black Lives Matter on the court and and names on the back of the jerseys, but they've also made tangible change other places. And so I trust them to do what's right, and that not all these problems can be solved in a couple of days, but there were some concerning aspects of the early parts of this strike for sure.
Yeah, I think it is. It was definitely odd. I think is definitely the good word for it. It just was odd how quickly it all fixed itself, for lack of a better term. But I will say, if there's a league I trust to do this the right way, it is the NBA. And so I guess we'll see what's to come when the guys are back on the floor now. I mean, it's been about almost a week since the guys are back playing games on the floor. And I mean, that's what we'll get into next. Basketball's being played. So regardless of, you know, how we necessarily access this decision made by the NBA and the players, like they're playing. Um, so I don't know if you have any other final thoughts on that before we discuss some hoops. By all means, speak now.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think basketball is back. I think they made some tangible change. I forgot to mention the voting, turning all NBA arenas into voting stations. That is a tangible
Yes.
change. That is momentous. I think we wouldn't be doing it justice to not report on that. But I think we could both agree that it feels a little weird to have basketball back, but it's also exciting to feel that energy again, because
It is.
I'm not sure about you. These games have been phenomenal to watch.
No, it is very exciting. I mean, and I feel like this week's basketball has been peak bubble so far. I mean, and granted, there have been a lot of things about this week's basketball that have been, I guess, frustrating, and we'll get into why the referees make that so. But we've had 2 game sevens, exciting conference semifinal series. I mean, we talked off camera that we're going to start, I believe, in the Western Conference. Is that correct? With these game sevens. I mean, the East didn't. Correct me if I'm wrong. The East didn't have a game 7. The East series were over in the blink of an eye, and the West now had Nuggets Jazz went 7 after the Jazz had a 3-1 lead, and OKC Houston went 7. That was the series we talked about in our playoff preview as being the most intriguing playoff series. Period. Which really ended up being, I feel like. So pick one. Pick your poison, Jacob. Where are we starting?
You prefaced it so beautifully. Let's go with Houston OKC. I think that was there were the storylines were just so rampant in that series. It was just a beautiful sort of coming together of what makes basketball great, and it was a wonderful game 7. I think those last couple minutes were a little sloppy. I wish Thunder had gotten off a shot. I wish I could have seen something a little more dramatic than whatever it was they decided to do in those final seconds. But
Yeah.
that was a fantastic series and a really enjoyable game 7.
Yeah, let's talk about that last play there. For those who didn't see it, what was it? The Rockets had? I'm sorry, the Thunder had the ball with just a few seconds on the clock, and Chris Paul tosses it cross court to Lou Dort. I'm getting this right? Chris Paul.
Oh well, yeah. Okay, so yes.
Dort, and Lou Dort pops a 3, and James Harden blocks it straight up into the air, and Dort comes down inbounds, turns his body to now be facing out of bounds, away from the basket, towards Harden with 2.5 seconds on the clock, and throws the ball at Harden, misses him, and it goes out of bounds. And of course, then we got the iconic James Harden yelling while Lou Dort is just stone-faced in the background. Beautiful picture. But what was that play? Like, put me in Lou Dort's head, please. You've played more basketball than me. Please put it.
I feel bad for the kid. He had a fantastic series. Okay, save for that game 6 that he went 0 for 9. He's had a fantastic series. He's been, I kind of think, the maybe breakout star of the bubble in a lot of ways. I think if there's anyone who has improved their ceiling more or heightened their ceiling more in the bubble, it's Lou Dort, I think. And so, I don't want to bag on him for one crazy that ended up not even mattering, which is nice because he jumped from out of bounds, so it ended up not mattering, which was nice. But it was an interesting moment with your season on the line to be calling on Lou Dort. You know what I mean? Chris Paul made a big deal out of how he's built for this. He is, he's special. He's built for this. And then the last couple possessions, nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting last couple seconds, and I think tells us a lot about both these teams kind of in their prospective futures.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. So many different wild things happened down the stretch of this game. The fourth quarter alone was thrilling. One question I have to ask you, talk to me about Jeff Green. I feel like that's a name that I'm not hearing a lot before this bubble, but he's been clutch for this Rockets team.
He has, man. He's playing clutch minutes. He's been, I think that's part of the reason I think this Rockets team is operating at the level we've seen from is that so many of these role players are finally playing the roles that we thought they were. And Jeff Green is playing out of his mind. Robert Covington has played really well. I thought Eric Gordon
team high 21 points.
He's been there. A lot of these role players are really stepping up, and it's kind of quiet. It's taking away from the fact that their 2 stars have not been fantastic. Harden's had his moments for sure, but his fourth quarter struggles have been prominent.
Harden was 4 of 15 in Game 7, 1 for 9 from 3.
There was this idea in the first couple rounds, especially after Houston jumped out to this 2-0 lead, that this is the Houston we've been waiting for. This has finally arrested James Harden. And then now, come to a game 6, come to a game 7 when you need him most. There have been some questions about James Harden. He doesn't exactly look as rested as one would hope. He doesn't exactly look as active as you want your superstar to be. And so this series, I think, did a lot in illuminating some of the issues that James Harden still possesses.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Although we have to applaud his defense at the end. I mean, that was one of the big storylines here. I felt like for this game was that for once, like the Rockets really, in theory, won with defense. Like they won with great clutch late game defense. And that's a bit of a surprise, I feel like, especially like from Harden,
I definitely agree. I think, okay, here's the thing. I think that's been kind of the defining aspect of this series. This has been a gritty, grindy. This has not been a crazy, light them up just sort of. There haven't been a bunch of 140 to 135 games. Like this has been a lot of gritty basketball. Have been a lot of physical, and James Harden has been arguably been the focal point of that for the Rockets' defensive scheme. I think a lot of what they do defensively relies on his ability to guard bigger players and his ability to mismatch defensively, where the guy he's guarding is definitely not guarding him on the other end.
Yeah.
And so I think he's been a focal point of that. And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I do think that is kind of a defining aspect of the series. It's been a little more grit and grind, it's been a little more bully ball than I think people anticipated going in.
Yeah. I will ask you though, speaking objectively, are you glad or disappointed the Rockets or the Thunder didn't win this series?
Man, I guess I would have been happy either way. I'm going to cop out, but I would have been happy with a Chris Paul sort of, revival story. I think that would have been an all-time great NBA story for Chris Paul to get traded away from his team and then beat them in the first round. That would have been phenomenal. But also, I support James Harden. I support Russell Westbrook. I think I want their legacies in 20 years to reflect how good I think they were.
Yeah.
And going a second round matchup versus the Lakers is the perfect opportunity to kind of build that resume, build the imagery that surrounds you, and will kind of live with your playoff legacy.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like there wasn't really a bad scenario for this series. Speaking as an objective third party fan, like either way, we were getting the Chris Paul story, and the young pieces around him, like a Dort. But also, on the other end of things, we want to see James Harden and Russell Westbrook excel in these playoffs. And honestly, to be honest, the role players. I'm excited to see Robert Covington. Coming from the Sixers background, a large portion of the Sixers fan base on Twitter was talking about how Robert Covington just was the leading scorer for a team that won a Game 7. And they don't have him anymore. And, we look back at where he's been before, and this is arguably his peak. This is like his peak time of his career right now. And seeing guys like him, like Eric Gordon had a great game. Seeing dudes like this excel around two stars like Westbrook and Harden is exciting. Do I think they're going to hang with the Lakers? I'm going to be honest, no. But we'll get to that later, to be completely honest. We'll get to that later. But all that being said, I wouldn't say I'm disappointed either, to answer my original question. But I do like the Chris Paul story. So I'm a little over the place on that one. But all that being said, good series, exciting series.
Right. Really couldn't ask for a whole lot more. That was a pretty great ending, pretty great series as a whole. And I think one we'll remember forever.
Yeah. One that will also be remembered forever is Donovan Mitchell turning the ball over in a clutch situation for the Utah Jazz, who lost Game 7 to the Denver Nuggets. Talk to me about that ending.
This series was just such a roller coaster of emotion in so many ways, especially comparing the highs of Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray to kind of the lows, or not lows, but the grit, the bully ball, the grit and grind, the intensity of that Game 7. I think how every bucket we were just kind of gripped with, just how fraught with emotion it felt like that game was. And I think that was exemplified in those final 20-odd seconds between, the poked ball from behind from Gary Harris, and then the missed layup by Torrey Craig.
Okay,
and then
why did he
hit it out? Unreal.
Why did Torrey Craig shoot? Okay, just again, it's like the Lou Dort play. It's like okay, you're up. They were ahead, right? By two. You get the ball back. You drive. You shoot with 5 seconds left. What? Pull it out. Get fouled. What are you doing? Like I was watching with a bunch of buddies, and we were all kind of. And this is probably honestly what happened for the players, but we're all in the moment. We're like, go, 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 score, score, and then he misses. We're like, no, 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 no. And he goes the other direction, and it's like you forget in that moment that like because it was so frantic, you forget the fact that like he can just pull it out and get fouled and go up by four, and this game's over. You know. And if that Mike Conley shot falls, oh my word, his career's over.
That would have been, I think, that would have been probably the greatest series ending play of all time. It's either that or Dame, you know what I mean, with the wave goodbye. But yeah, that Mike Conley shot was halfway in. There's that angle of Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles on the side with their hands up. It looked like such a perfect moment
Yeah,
for Utah basketball as a whole, and then just ripped away from them. But that was such an incredible 20 seconds. That was so stressful. That was just everything. I don't know, everything we want basketball to be to a certain extent.
right. I
We want people to be going full charge.
yeah,
We don't want to be playing for fouls. Where's the fun in that?
no.
You know what I mean? So I love that ending. I thought that was so much fun. I don't know how much of Nuggets behind the scenes stuff, but they were giving Torrey Craig so much crap. It was all the fellow Nuggets players, like between Jamal Murray, Gary. Missing a layup to potentially lose the season. I don't know how it gets worse than that. I don't know how it gets lower. I think that, yeah, I don't know how you live with yourself, but I'm glad for Torrey Craig's sake that did not happen. And yeah, I'm a little less excited about their series with the Clippers after Game 1, but
Like,
I'm still excited as a whole for that series.
yeah, I'd agree. Um, yeah, I saw a tweet. Okay, with that, talking about that last shot, I saw a tweet, and it was side by side images of the rims, where the Mike Conley three was basically like in the rim, and then the shot of Kawhi Leonard's three pointer from the conference semis last year, and it's like bouncing off the side of the rim, and it's like which one of these shots went in? Torrey Craig, I'm sorry, Mike Conley's shot had no business not going down, and I will be on the record as saying I am not the biggest proponent of the Utah Jazz, but your heart still breaks a little bit when you see that happen. You know?
1,000%. That was especially painful. I think, yeah, yeah, that was a brutal way to end a series. This is a brutal, yeah. I feel for them, and they were never supposed to be in this position, but this was a team coming into the bubble with just it felt like too many losses. Mike Conley didn't seem to be the same guy he was, and then they just flipped a switch come Orlando, and I commend them for that. This has been an impressive coaching job by Quinn Snyder. Like I said, Mike Conley really stepped up in ways we hadn't seen in the regular season. So I salute you, Utah Jazz. Sorry you blew a 3-1 lead.
They did. Oh, and Donovan Mitchell, like I do. I have again being involved in the Sixers fan base. I see a lot of these people complaining about the fact that Donovan Mitchell cried walking out the tunnel, and we just lifted him up on our shoulders and said, "Come here, brother, we're here for you." And then last year, Joel Embiid sobbing, and they're just mocking the heck out of this guy. Talk me through that as a third party fan, Jacob.
JoJo is just so much easier to make fun of. We just, as a basketball community, just want to dislike JoJo. You know what I mean? We wanted to. He's fun to watch on the court, but I think he is kind of perfect as a villain in this
Would you say
league.
would you say you always want him and his confidence level to be between like a 3 and a 7?
No, I want JoJo's confidence to be always from 8 to 10. I want JoJo as confident as possible because in the best moments, it's incredible. It's when he's staring down Russell Westbrook and he's blocking shots off the backboard. That's by peak Joel Embiid. But Joel Embiid that's crushed, that just lost a game set, a series on a buzzer beater by Kawhi Leonard. I want that JoJo too. I want that emotion. I want that rawness. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. I can't complain. But yeah, JoJo got roasted for that compared to Donovan Mitchell, who, like you said, we all embraced. We all said we support the passion.
I know
Well,
we were all like poor Spider, you know what I mean? Like and Joel Embiid just sobbing in the tunnel.
this cloud, yeah, man
That's
up.
a meme because he's like his like eyes were like puffy and like the whole nine from just sobbing your eyes out. Poor guy. But
Yeah,
I'll
No,
admit it was kind of funny.
it really was. But yeah, no. So it was Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, in a hell of a series. I think that's the one person I feel the most bad for on the Jazz is that this is an all-time series, an all-time performance. But I was going to feel bad for whoever was left out of the Mitchell Murray sort of advance. But salute to Mitchell. That was one of the most incredible scoring performances I've seen over a 7-game stretch. That was just an absolute clinic, and it was someone for me who's been a little bit of a Donovan Mitchell hater or a little bit of the hater of the hype he has received.
Yeah, yeah.
I felt like an idiot. I felt like he just looked. He answered every question. You know what I mean? This is news. He's getting a max contract at the end of the offseason makes total sense. He can be the number. He clearly, if he proved anything, this series he can be a number one guy on a championship contender, no question. Yeah. I think that was my biggest question coming into the playoffs. I didn't believe that. And I think I've been proven wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the biggest takeaway. It has to be the biggest takeaway if you're a Jazz fan. But at the end of the day, the Nuggets are moving on, and we saw it in Game 1. They got toasted by the Clippers. I don't know if I saw that coming. Did you?
Hindsight's always 20/20, so that helps. But the fact that they did just play Game 7, grueling 7-game series, 1 game off, and then against the rested Clippers was kind of a recipe for disaster. But I think I knew it was over in the first couple minutes when Kawhi just started on Jamal Murray. That to me was both shocking and terrifying if I'm any other Western Conference team, because I was making this point with my friend that if Kawhi is going to guard the opponent's best player for 48 minutes, he's the best player in the league. Like I love LeBron with all my heart, and still in the last 5 minutes, I would take him because that's when LeBron really ramps it up defensively. But if Kawhi is going to play at 100% defensively the entire game, he disrupts your entire offensive scheme. He is a one man game changer in terms of defensively. And if you're just willing to stick him on anyone, that is terrifying.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm pulling up I know it wasn't a great performance, but I want to get the exact numbers on Murray last night. I mean, Jamal Murray, fresh off of dropping 40 and 50 in the Jazz series, put up 12 on 15 shots. Like, yikes. I mean, granted, no one on this Nuggets team scored more than 15, which is wild. But, I mean, that's not the Jamal Murray we saw against Utah. And that, again, speaks volumes to Kawhi. And I think if that's gonna be the matchup every night, what you described, I'm not, reinventing the wheel here, but the way that we saw that matchup go down last night, just between, Kawhi Leonard defending Jamal Murray, like, if that's going to be, like, Jamal Murray has to do something very different in the next several games, or the Nuggets have to scheme something very different than they did last night to get him more opportunities to be away from Kawhi Leonard. Because if that's going to be the matchup, it's over. Like, that's it. Like Nikola Jokic is great, and Jeremy Grant is having a good season, and role players are having good seasons for the Nuggets. But Jamal Murray's he's your dagger scorer. He's your I feel like every time we see one of these NBA teams really have a great playoff performance, you're getting a lot of good role players, but someone is going off. Someone's exploding. Someone's having a great game. Whether it's a role player putting up 25 or an elite player putting up 40, it's something like that. And I feel like either he has to do that, Jokic has to explode, or they need to scheme something very different to get Kawhi off of him, because the formula just wasn't there last night, start to finish. I mean, it was like 17-15 or 17-16 early, and then just by halftime, the Clippers were up by like 20, and it just never got close again. And I think you hit on why, and just expanding upon that. Just if that's going to be the matchup here, I don't see the Nuggets winning formula without wholesale change very soon, very rapidly.
Couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that the onus lies on Mike Malone. I think this is kind of a crucial, show us what you're coaching, show us what you're made of coaching moment to a certain extent. Like what are your advances? How are you going to react when your opponent does something kind of radical? I didn't expect Kawhi to be on Murray from the jump. You know what I mean? That to me would be a radical change from what the Clippers have done. And so I'm curious to see how he reacts. I assume it's going to be a lot more pick and roll action. It's going to be, I think that's what a lot of Utah was, a lot of Jamal Murray isolations, a lot of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic pick and roll. I assume they're just going to kind of try and run Kawhi through the gauntlet. They're going to put him through, 30, 40 screens a game. Like they're just going to try and wear him down. Because that is the thought. Like if you're going to take that type of beating as a defensive player, what will your offensive production sort of look like? Kawhi balanced that really well last night, but through the course of a 7-game series, that would be if I'm Mike Malone, if I'm the Nuggets, I'm going to try and wear him down as much as I can defensively. But yeah, it is an incredibly tall task for the Nuggets, and like you said, an incredibly tall task for Nikola Jokic, because he is the one theoretically who needs to pick up the slack. Zubac or Harrell should not be that should not be enough to stop him.
No.
This is this is the best offensive center in the league, no question to me, and he can't really be sending out Zubac as the antidote to that. And so the onus lies on him, like I said, and I'm curious to see how he responds.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, we are closing in on half an hour, so I do want to real quick get your take, just your baseline take on Lakers Rockets. Do the Rockets have a shot? If so, how? What's kind of your outlook for the series?
I think it's going to be a very interesting game. If you remember, or series as a whole, if you remember one of the first games the Rockets played when the fully adopted the small ball was against the Lakers, when right after the Covington trade, and they ran them out of the freaking gym. They every sort of small ball fantasy you have about spacing and not allowing the opposing bigs to hang near the rim. It just, like I just said, the spacing was there, the flow of the game was there, and it was kind of the picture perfect what a small ball Rockets game looks like. And I'm curious how many times they can replicate that in this series. I think similar with Mike Malone, this is Frank Vogel's kind of moment to shine as a coach. As much as we know AD needs to play with a center, it might be time for Vogel to say, we need you to do what's best for the team here. We need you to play center. We need you to play alongside LeBron and Kuzma and then 2 other guards, because I think the underlying conundrum of this Lakers season has kind of been these 3 main points of the fact that it's an Anthony Davis contract year. Anthony Davis has specific requirements about who he wants to play for and who he wants to play with. And those specific requirements may not always mesh with what's best for this current Lakers roster. And so I think all those problems are going to be kind of exemplified in this Rockets series, or amplified, in this Rockets series. I think if they're playing JaVale and Dwight Howard 30 minutes a game, that is a recipe for disaster. And I'm curious how much buck Anthony Davis is willing to suck up to sort of make what's best for the team here, in terms of how willing is he to bang with lower bodies down low, how willing is he to maybe fight with PJ Tucker for rebounds, or fight with Robert Covington. I think it's going to be a physical series, and the refs are going to let them play. As if I'm learned anything from this playoffs, this has been a physical playoffs, and the refs are. I feel like maybe I don't know. Maybe it's been a while since NBA playoffs, but these feel especially physical. Well, and I think that's going to be pertinent in this Rockets Houston Lakers series, is that the emphasis has to be on matching that physicality. If you're the Lakers, now I wouldn't shy away from it. I would not beat the Rockets at their own game, but show that you are the more physically dominant team. I wouldn't want to be bullied by PJ Tucker and Robert Covington.
Yeah, I will say though, refereeing has been lax until the last about 40 seconds of games. And we can get into Bucks Heat in a minute, but I will add that I agree. I think when it comes to Rockets Lakers, I think the Lakers to me have 2 clear advantages. Obvious size, not really reinventing the wheel there, and LeBron. I look at this Lakers team, and I feel like it's very much unlike any other team LeBron has taken into the playoffs. He has one great superstar that he's alongside. And I mean, I guess he had Kyrie, but the difference in styles between LeBron pairing up with Kyrie and LeBron pairing up with Anthony Davis is night and day. And this is, I feel like, I mean, they beat Portland, congrats. But this is where I feel like that tandem gets tested, and we kind of get to see for the first time, does this tandem work in the playoffs for the future? Because, if LeBron and AD isn't working out, LeBron's got some question marks to answer for the rest of his career. You know, what team does he want to put together to finish his career with? Obviously, he doesn't have like 3 years left. He's got plenty more than that. But um, you know, I think the Rockets are a good test for that because there's, like you mentioned, there's such a um, they differ so much in style from what the Lakers want to do. And I think, you know, we're gonna have a chance to see, do LeBron and Anthony Davis make sense in a tough postseason series? You know, is Anthony Davis willing to do the things that he needs to do to make this team work? You know, this exact team work and win a series? I would hope yes. You know, this guy's been on bad teams for most of his career since coming out of Kentucky on one of the best teams we've ever seen come out of, you know, in college basketball in the last 20 years. Um, I have to think he wants to win something. I mean, finally, he has a chance to win a playoff series and win a championship, which he has not had, period, up to today, you know? Like, if I'm Anthony Davis, I want to do whatever it takes, you know? So all that being said, I'm curious to see just how that combo works when the chips are down. I think it'll work well. I think the Lakers win this series. And I think you'd probably agree with me.
I would have to agree. Yes, sir. I think the Rockets get a game or two. I think my official prediction is Lakers in 6. I'd be more surprised by Lakers in 5 than Lakers in 7. That's the thing. This series could easily go 7 to me. In large part because the Lakers have no one to guard James Harden. I think they're going to be throwing Kuzma at him, would be my guess to start. Maybe Contavious Caldwell-Pope. I think it is slim pickings from the jump. It's for the Lakers, and so that's going to be a massive problem that Vogel has to decipher. And I'm curious how they go about it. I don't think it'll be as simple as just leave Kuzma on an island and hope for the best. I think they'll be a little more creative than that. But this, the Rock is going to make you pay one way or another, and it's kind of just picking your poison to a certain extent.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I 100% agree with you on the series prediction. I think 6 sounds about right, but again, for the reasons you mentioned, not to just echo you, but 7 does seem way more likely than 5, just because I can see games like the one that you mentioned right after all the moves were made to kind of retool this Rockets team. I can see a couple of games like that where things just click right, and they win a game or 2 or 3. But 4 wins, not 7 wins. 4 wins seems like a tall task. So I would agree with you. Lakers win it probably in 6, maybe in 7. But that being said, we do have an entire Eastern Conference to discuss. And granted, it's a bit less of a story. 4 teams are left. 2 teams look great. 1 team is still in its series when it almost shouldn't be. You know, that's kind of the story in simple terms. I mean, I think the first thing we jump into is Bucks Heat, because I mean that whole game 2 was nutty. The way that game finished, I mean, the Heat were up by like 9, and then the Bucks got a couple of key baskets, and Giannis missed those big free throws, and it felt like they were dead in the water. And they get a steal off of none other than Jimmy Butler, who did not have a good game, by the way. Jimmy Butler went off in game 1, but he was not there in game 2. And that's a whole other point that I can make. The fact that the Heat are up 2-0, and they've realistically gotten 1 good game from Jimmy Butler against Giannis and the Bucks. One of the, as we've referred to them before, one of the best regular season teams in NBA history. That's surprising. But to dig back into the specifics of the game, there were some touchy foul calls at the end of this game. I mean, the last 5 points scored of this game were at the free throw line on jumpers, on fouled jump shots. How do you feel about that as a basketball fan, Jacob?
I hate to say this, but there are a few less entertaining ways to end a game than jump shots, than fouls on jump shots. Like, that's just, I don't know. They're all so ticky-tack. Especially these ones felt like, at some point, let's swallow our whistles, ref. Let's have a little bit of, I don't know, reverence for the moment to a certain extent. Like, I don't want a game 2 ending on a touch foul. It just, I don't know. I think the Butler one at the end was the extreme sort of, personification of that. That was rough to see. That was a sad way for a game to end. And I just think this series has been so great up to that point. It's disappointing to have it end that way.
Now talk to me about this: the fact that maybe I was just like seeing this wrong, but it felt like Giannis fouled Jimmy Butler after the clock hit zeros.
Ooh.
Why is that a foul?
That's a great point. That's a great point. I didn't even look at that.
He barely gets the shot off with like 0.3, and it felt like contact was made after zeros.
That's the thing. Like contact and air quotes for me. Like he hits him.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering it correctly in my mind, it's like he hits him with his hip a little bit, and he has his hand on
He gets
back.
it on his side of his back on the left of his left hand.
It felt rough. It felt like a stretch, undoubtedly. And like I just said, that's not how I want my playoff games ending.
Do you think that was a makeup call?
That's the thing. I wondered that at the time. I would hate if that's the case.
Same.
I would hate the case if that's a makeup call, but I think you may be onto something. I do think that is sadly how refs' minds kind of work, in that I need to make this even, or I need to, if I gave it to one guy, I need to give it to the next guy. And so I think that's tough. I think that's a poor way to go about this, but I don't know. We have some ideas on how to fix it, though. I don't want to toot our own horn, but and these aren't unique ideas to us, but I think I like. Okay, I like the Elam ending. I think it's time for the Elam ending.
Let's go. Okay, let's discuss the Elam ending.
It wouldn't fully fix the ending on a foul shot problem, but wow, I don't know if these playoffs would be drastically improved to me by the Elam ending.
I will say the only thing I don't like about the Elam ending, and we should contextualize what the Elam ending is. So the Elam ending was introduced in the TBT, the basketball tournament. It's a very unique way to end a basketball game, and the way it works is that at the first stoppage after the 4-minute mark, clock stops, turns off, and you take whatever score you have. So say it's 70-65, Boston is beating the Sixers. I don't know. So the winning team has 70 points. You add 8 to their score.
However the NBA All-Star Game did it differently. Like there's, the total number of points you add isn't the most important part.
You add a certain number to their score and you play to that score. So, we saw a game in TBT where a team entered the Elam ending down by 25 points and almost won.
I think my favorite part of the Elam ending is it's a buzzer beater every time. There is always a game-winning shot. And rarely, I think, maybe hopefully rarer than in the NBA, that shot would not come at the foul line. I think the Elam ending would certainly incentivize more drawn out play, a little bit more high level play, rather than a game of constantly hoping for fouls.
Yeah, I do agree that the fact that it will never end at the free throw line, the fact that it avoids free throws avoids the.
Sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I was just you already were correcting yourself.
Oh, okay. Yes.
That was all.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that it avoids the, time management free throws is a major plus. The one negative I have, I've watched so many exciting basketball games where the clock's winding down and there's something about the franticness of a clock that I'd miss. I hate the fact, it's the same thing like, in any, and like, it's not a really great example in football, but, it's the same idea. It's just, okay, I'm going to start over. You're absolutely right. The fact that it would take away the, the likelihood of, these kind of games where officials control the end of the game and you have all those time management fouls that cost a ton of time and take forever. Those are all major pluses of the Elam ending. The one thing I struggle with is that in so many games, what makes so many plays so exciting is the franticness of a clock. And I struggle with the idea that like I think about one of my favorite basketball memories ever. It's Tyler Ennis, the half-court buzzer beater to beat Pittsburgh. And the only reason that shot's so amazing is because he had 4 seconds to run the floor and heave it from half court. He couldn't, and the thing about the Elam ending is there's no half court, there's no crazy, you really think Dame is pulling up from where he pulled up if he only needs 1 point? No, they're gonna go inside. They're up by however many, But I guess that would be I'm with the Elam Ending, but that would be hard to say goodbye to. The franticness of the clock. You know what I mean?
A fantastic point. A fantastic point that I really hadn't even super considered before. But you're right. There is some intent. There is some just energy of clock winding down, and like you said, that we would lose ridiculous shots fired at the buzzer. That would be a shame. And so you're right. So you may have convinced me slightly to be not as passionately about it, but I'm still out. I'm still on board. I'm
No, I
still.
am too. I am definitely pro. I lean more toward pro Elam Ending than anti. I would maybe say, I'm pro it if there's a way we can. I don't know if there's a way we can have the clock on, but maybe we have a target score, and it's you hit the target score before the clock runs out. You know what I mean? Like you either hit the target score or the clock runs out. I don't know. Maybe there's a way to work it so we can get those crazy buzzer beaters, but there is something about because they tout it as every game's a buzzer beater, but it's not because there's no buzzer. There's no like, oh my gosh, 2 seconds left. It's either this is the game or it's not. It's like he shoots the three and they have the number of points they need now, and that's not anticlimactic, but it's a game winner without being a buzzer beater. So
Definitely, no. It's not perfect. You're right. I think if the shot, I wonder if they could do something funky with the shot clock. If they brought it down, you know what I mean? Maybe made it 14 seconds instead. I don't know, kind of try to speed it up. I don't know. There's definitely some fun ways to play with it.
yeah,
But I do think some of these endings have been in these playoff games have been less than climactic. Have had been slightly duds, and I wonder how much Elam Ending would have helped that.
yeah. No, I agree. It's funny because all right, the Elam Ending. How certain things will just happen and one side of a coin can use that to their advantage in anything, like if you're someone who's pro automatic strike zone in baseball and there's a horrible pitch call, anytime you see that you can use that to your advantage, be like, an automatic strike zone would have caught that, you know what I mean? But in the same sense, Heat Bucks was an Elam Ending supporter's dream because you watch that game and that's the game that points. Just you can point to that and be like, this is why we need the Elam Ending. But you know what game says this is why we don't need the Elam Ending? Is Raptors Celtics game 3. Because OG Anunoby is not hitting that insane shot with half a second left if there's a target score. So I guess the question to you is the OG Anunoby finish more exciting than the Heat Bucks ending sucked, or vice versa?
Man, that is a great question. Man, I think I'll go positive. I think the OG Anunoby shot was more exciting, and you're right. I may not be prepared to lose that, Jeff. I may be flip flopping
It's
for
tough.
you. It's tough to lose that. That would be real sad because that was so exciting. That was absolutely phenomenal. I think that is what makes something like a game 3 so much fun. Just because the emotion, the difference between the emotion of the difference between going down 3-0 versus down 2-1 is so significant that you can just feel the intensity. You can feel the emotion on Kyle Lowry's face when he jumps into OG Anunoby's arms.
Yes.
It was such a perfect moment in so many ways. I love this Raptors team. This is I don't know. I am a big Nick Nurse stan. I think I love the organization as a whole, and that was such a great ending.
I agree. What was wild about that game was I was actually watching the Flyers playoff game while that game was. We were kind of going back and forth, me and a buddy. We were flipping back and forth between the two games, and we'd been following Celtics Raptors, but it was that point where it was like 95-91, so we like moved away from that game, went back to the Flyers game. They were in overtime, and he asked me, "It's like what happened with the Celtics?" And I looked at my phone, and for some reason, my app said Celtics 103, Raptors 101, end fourth. And I looked at the play-by-play, and it said Daniel Tice layup shot 0-0-0 with 0-0-0 seconds on the clock as like the listed time on the play-by-play. I'm like, oh, the Celtics won. And then his brother walks in and he's like, "Did you guys see the Raptors won?" We're like, "What?" We thought the kid was nuts. And then I looked at my phone and I saw all these tweets about Raptors, 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 OG Anunoby. I'm like, and I realized that it was 0 seconds, but it was 0.5 seconds.
It was phenomenal. It was such a great, yeah. It was a phenomenal ending. I don't know if you saw the Daniel Tice layup,
I
but
did.
King
Kemba.
okay, so one of my favorite things in sports is great moments who then get immediately overshadowed by even greater moments.
Marcus
Uh,
Page.
exactly. Marcus Page is to be the best possible example of this.
Was it Julio with the Falcons catch in Super Bowl 51?
Yeah. That's another great one. That's there's
I
yeah.
think sorry not to interrupt you, but I think you and I one time had a conversation about the best of this moment. But the
Did we
best,
really?
yeah, the best in this category.
I would love to find that
Marcus Page
transcript.
was up there, Julio was up there. I think we talked about it in that year because it was about how all the recent games in that calendar year of sports had been had a moment like that. And I'm trying to think what Clemson, Alabama, what preceded the Renfro touchdown.
I'm trying to remember what. I don't know. Was there something crazy on that Alabama?
I feel like
Okay, the best. A great example to me is it's Draymond Green at Game 7, 2016 Finals. He throws up like a 35, 13, and 8, something like that. Like just a dominant performance. It doesn't matter because of LeBron. But yeah, there's so many great examples of that. But that Kemba Walker pass looks off the defense, no look, bounce pass to win a game. Who does that? You know what I mean? Oh, Kemba has just been phenomenal in this bubble. And I'm sad he got his moment overshadowed, but
I know
he has a couple of them coming.
because this has been such a, I don't want to say bounce back because it's not like he hasn't been good, but when a guy's that good on the Hornets, you kind of forget how good he is. And and this has been like his return to prominence year. And that was a moment that it totally could have. And granted, I still think the Celtics are in position to have plenty of more chances for him to make noise. But that does suck a little bit that he had that moment in what this year has been for him, and then boom, OG says no and just closes the door. Too bad.
I think you're spot on, Jeff. He's going to have a plethora of moments available to him to remake this sort of UConn run. I don't know. Everyone's been making that comparison, but this feels like that UConn team to a certain extent where he's their focal point, him and Jason Tatum, and they are a fun team. They're going to get some shots up. They're going to run. They've been I don't know. They've debatably been the team of the bubble to me. They've definitely changed my expectations the most since coming to the bubble.
I think the team of the bubble is the Heat, to be completely honest. I mean, they swept the pay. They had the most impressive first round series in terms of how they played against who they played. Correct me if I'm wrong. They were the only sweep.
No, Celtics, Sixers.
Sixers, yeah, but the Sixers are trash. We don't need to get into that. Sixers roster is trash. The Heat swept a much better team, and now they're up 2-0 on arguably what should be the best team in the East, and they've looked deserving. I mean, the Bucks really had no business being back in that game when they took the lead and ended up winning. They were down 9 with like 20 seconds left. And game 1, correct me if I'm wrong, the Heat took care of business in that game as well. And you gonna say something?
I was, but then you continued, so I stopped. Fine.
No, please feel free. Cut me off.
Okay, Jimmy Butler in that game 1 was just, he took that game by the honchos and kind of just made it his own. He was incredible. He was phenomenal.
He had 40. I mean, come on, like.
It's the great point you made earlier that it's not that he didn't show up in game 2. He had been talking the whole time. There are guys on this roster who are more talented than me, who are able to do what I did at a better level. I mean, he has topped up Tyler Hero so much. It's incredible. I don't know. Tyler Hero has been phenomenal this year. He's, rookie of the year finalist, all that jazz. But he is, the way Jimmy talks about him, it's the way, superstars talk about prodigies to a certain extent. It's like, this guy is, balling out and out. So he's been talking incredibly high about his rookies. Goran Dragic has been maybe the most underrated player of the bubble. He is balling. He has been phenomenal for this team after being relegated to the bench all season.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know my love for the Heat. My love for
I
the
do.
Heat is nothing new.
That
And
was a
it
great
feels
take.
good to be vindicated, man. This team is talented.
That was a great take of yours from the beginning, and I keep going back to that. You were spot on about the Heat. I my heart would love to see Miami Toronto because I like Toronto more than Boston. Sixers fan, what do you want to say? But I think the pure basketball fan in me wants Miami Boston. And who would have thought we want a 5 seed and a 3 seed in the conference finals? But give it to me. I think I'd rather see that than Raptors Bucks. Would you agree?
Yeah, I any series going forward, no part of the Bucks. I don't know. As fun as the Bucks regular season was, it feels like they've been kind of figured out to a certain extent.
Yep.
And I don't want to place the blame wholly on Mike Budenholzer, but like this was kind of the thing with that dominant Hawks team is that you have one gimmick is oversimplifying it, but you have a system that works and works especially well in the regular season. And then come playoffs, when it's game after game of the same thing over and over again with no real sort of changes, no sort of adjustments, it's it's the rope ends out on that very quickly. What's the analogy I'm looking for? The plank. If you're walking off it, that ends very quickly.
Yeah, I get
And
the
so
analogy.
I don't know. So I don't know. But I think Giannis deserves another fair share of that blame. I think we
Yeah.
have to be looking at ourselves like, what adjustments are you going to make? What sort of, you are the back-to-back MVP. You are the most dominant force this league has seen since peak LeBron. Like, let's show us something here, man.
Yeah, I agree. I know we talked about at the beginning about how the formula to handle the Bucks is not a secret. It's pack the lane and force their shooters to beat you. And they're not, and they're just not. And I I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the cardinal sin of radio podcasts hosting, and I'm gonna ask you before his season is over. I'm gonna ask you this question: does Giannis need to go somewhere else?
Man, I don't know. I don't want to go as far as to say go somewhere else, but he definitely needs a change of scenery in terms of what
Yeah.
the teammates. I think as much as I love Chris Middleton, this is the type of off season where you kind of need to say, let's sort of refresh who we are as a program, as a competitive sort of industry. Let's give some sort of let's go away from what we've been doing. Is my point is that they've really bought into the analytics. They've really bought into the if we surround Giannis with shooters, all our problems will be solved. This might be the off season of let's get some hoopers. Let's get some dudes who are maybe not as analytically savvy as we have targeted in the past, but are going to just get buckets when we need them. People like Russell Westbrook, people like Markieff Morris, like these kind of guys who are classically anti-analytic, but come playoff time are the dudes you need on your roster.
Yeah, I guess what I ask you is who's that guy in this free agent class?
That's the thing. Off the top of my head, I'm not positive about this free agent class, but that's the thing. Whether it's through free agency, whether it's through trades, whether it's through a high floor draft pick, in terms of they need to kind of change the outlook of this team. They need to change the identity of this team. That's kind of the word I'm looking for. And I don't know if that's a coaching change. I assume they'll give Budenholzer another year, but I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the move for the Bucks is going forward in terms of Giannis's free agency clock is starting now. It's Budenholzer has kind of been exposed in 2 straight playoffs. I think it's certainly panic time if I was in Milwaukee, undoubtedly. And so obviously for this series, it's far from over. But if everything we've seen so far is indicative of what's to come, it may be over. And so if that's the case, if you're looking at this offseason, the free agency pool is not as deep as one would hope. I think, if you're looking to trade assets, you got Middleton, but beyond that, I'm curious to see how the Bucks handle this because this has been a resounding denial of kind of everything that they had built during the regular season.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. So, I'm with you. I don't know what they're gonna do because you said it. There's no real strong free agents. So do they trade? But if they do, is it Middleton? Is it picks? I mean, you can't expect them to have good draft picks, in the next several years. So no one's gonna like be jumping at the bit to get the Bucks first rounder. So I don't know what really. I mean, yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I will we'll see it pan out. They're gonna try something, or they'll just rest on their laurels and hope that this was a freak situation and Jimmy Butler had a great series or something like that. Um, but if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm concerned. That's I guess where I'm at. And if I'm Giannis, I'm a little concerned. And the system that I'm in, that I'm dominating in the regular season, is not working in the playoffs. And I guess I'll ask you this: how much can you attribute it to his age?
To Giannis's age, how much like
The
interesting?
fact that he hasn't really played the playoffs until the last 2 years.
No, it's 100% accurate. I agree. And so the thing, okay, here's the thing. Giannis has been good this series. He's put up good numbers. I think they're asking what they want him to do.
Yeah.
I think the controversy about him not guarding Jimmy Butler was kind of the personification of this. In that, like, end of the day, Giannis is a system player. Like Budenholzer, the Bucks believe in their system, and Giannis is the best possible outcome of that system. Mm-hmm. They're the best possible cog in that system, but he's still a cog. That's how they view him, at least. And that's why he's not guarding Jimmy Butler, is because their defensive scheme relies on his protection help at the rim. But the reality is that come playoff time, systems like that are just significantly less effective. We've seen this. Mike Budenholzer is not the first person to learn this, and I doubt he'll be the last, because we have seen systems that are just dominant in the regular season come to a screeching halt come postseason. And so it's, how much we should blame Giannis for that, I'm not sure, but I know for a fact I'm going to blame Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah, I agree. And the early 2010s Hawks example was a very good one. But I agree. I don't know if I could say it by myself. I'll stop it there, I suppose. But I think that pretty much wraps up all these different series. Is there anything else kind of on your radar? I mean, Steve Nash is the new coach of the Brooklyn Nets, so that's exciting.
It looks like Tyronn Lue is headed to Philly.
That's been rumored.
Yeah, that seems
not Jay Wright.
This close. They were this close to getting him.
Until he said that he clearly had never wanted to be there and he was never talking about going there. But they were this close.
This close. Yeah, I'm excited. The Steve Nash hire is going to be really interesting to me. I mean, that's pretty clearly a Kyrie and Kevin Durant sort of operated decision. But, that's the next great coaching prodigy. That is that's a wonderful decision. That is, a franchise-altering decision. And who knows? I'm not going to count out Steve Nash. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are the chances, though, that he's Jason Kidd?
Like 30%, I think, maybe 40. You know what I mean? I think it's really hard for great players to be great. I think that's a difficult skill to have. The common trait among great players is it's difficult to teach what they have. You know what I mean? So much of what makes great players great is the intangible sort of qualities that it's hard to teach. And so, but Steve Nash does seem to counter that. You know what I mean? He is the rare great player who isn't surviving off his physical gifts, who hopefully could sort of translate some of that cerebral knowledge that he has to a team as a whole.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm excited to see how it works out. And I do think it's better than like Tyronn Lue or even, why am I blanking? There's another classic, like Mark Jackson. It's better than Mark, you know what I mean? It's better than a lot of these retreads. I'm curious to see. I'm very curious to see. I think, Kenny Atkinson still hasn't been hired, correct? He's still out there.
So. I don't think so.
Yeah, him to the Bulls, I think, was either rumored or So that seems like a very natural pairing. There's a Jacques Vaughn, the Nets coach that Steve Nash is replacing. He was fantastic in the bubble. I wonder if he gets an opportunity somewhere. So there's a fun little coaching carousel going around.
Yeah.
It's a whole season other than the playoffs.
I know. We honestly talk about how there's no free agents. There's our free agency,
Yeah.
And also the fact that there's no great free agents is encouraging in the year where free agency is going to last about 9 days. So
that is a very good point. Yeah. No one will staying up till 12:01 to see where they sign.
No.
That's kind of nice.
I mean, you looked at the list just now. Who is the best free agent on the market right now?
There's a bunch of players with like player options. Like Anthony Davis is technically the best free agent. Like Anthony Davis will technically hit free agency.
But
exactly. It seems like he's going to resign. DeMar DeRozan will be has a player option, but that seems likely that he'll pick it up. Probably the best true unrestricted is Marc Gasol, I think.
Okay.
And so that kind of speaks to the strength of it. I think he's been fantastic, and he's a difference maker. But if that's your number one, there's some, I don't know, there's some interesting names. Jordan Clarkson's going to be hitting the market. Fred Van Vliet's going to get paid.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a couple interesting names, but beyond that, it's slim pickings.
And we'll dig into that more when we get there. But I guess for now, to wrap up, just give me your biggest bold prediction for the coming days of these conference semis series.
I hate putting this on in permanent ink, but I'm gonna say it. Heat are gonna sweep. This is gonna be a 4-0 Heat. I'm doubling down on the Heat, baby. I think I'm all in on this Heat team and preaching it since this podcast has been alive. I've been all in on the Heat.
Yeah.
And I think they finish off the Bucks. I think this is a team full of professionals who know when you have a team down, you need to finish the job. You need to step on their neck. Yeah. And there's no one I trust with next stepping more than Jimmy Butler.
I would agree. I would if I can't make that take, it's gonna be my take.
Was it really?
It was. It feels like the easiest bold prediction to make. Maybe that's just you and I having a similar wave of thinking, but it feels like the bold prediction that's like not bold, but not crazy. Like saying that's not like, oh my gosh, put this guy, put this guy on house arrest. He's, blaspheming, but it's still a bold prediction because this is the Bucks we're talking about. The idea that they wouldn't win a single game in this series is bold. All that to say, not an unbold prediction, but one I definitely also agreed with because it didn't feel super bold. If I have to do something else, though, tangent aside, if I have to do a different one, I'll have a little fun. Raptors and Rockets both push to 7.
Ooh, spicy. I like it. I think Raptors comeback would not shock me at all. I think this Raptors team, like we just talked about, well coached, very balanced. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And they've got life now. They've got life.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need. And I like that Rockets take. I'll add on to that. I would not be shocked if the Rockets win Game 1.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the Magic did.
Exactly. It also seems it's very Houston to come out and shoot like 26 for 4 from 40 or 26 for 40 from 3. You know what I mean? Just some nuts number.
Yeah. No, and the Game 1 feels like when you're the team that's definitely the underdog, but not like an insane underdog. Game 1 feels like the game where you come out and you're like, ha, we don't suck that much. And there are times the other team's like, oh, we have to play, and then they come out. I mean, look at Portland, LA. Look at Blazers, Lakers. Same story.
It's so funny you bring that up. I didn't realize this till this year. The Magic had done that now in 3 straight playoffs. That's so funny.
What's funny is last year the team they did that to won it all. Do the Bucks survive? History would say so, Jacob.
Yeah. It's fun. Can't count out that magic boost. I think that's what this is. That's what we're calling it now.
The magic spark.
Exactly. I love it.
Also, when's the last time a 5 seed made the conference finals?
Another 4 seed, I think. Didn't they finish? Wasn't the Pacers the 5?
He's the 5 seed.
Wow. Oh my, that is pretty incredible. I think it'll be I think every finals for a while has been 1 versus 2 or something on those.
Every conference finals?
No, every finals, every NBA finals has been a 1 or 2 seed facing off, I think. Or not every, last couple of years.
So a 4 made the conference finals in 18, because that was the Cavs with back when LeBron was still there, obviously. I'm going through the list. I'm trying to find a 5 seed that made the conference finals, as we now know the Heat are seemingly likely to do. And I have now gone back to 2015. Nothing there. Nothing in 14. No, 13. Memphis Grizzlies made the 2013 conference finals as a 5 seed. It's been 7
Wow. Exciting team, man. And the parallels, that's a great – I'm so glad you brought up that 2013 Memphis team. That's a great little, grit and grind, baby.
That Memphis team beat the 1 seed Thunder in 5 games, and then they got swept by the Spurs.
Tony Allen. Shout out Tony Allen.
And who did the Spurs lose to in the finals? Miami. Full circle.
Mind blown there, Jeff.
With that bomb, I think it's time we call it a podcast, Jacob, unless you've got anything more to add.
No, Jeff, that was a beautiful ending. I can't top that.
Jacob is shaking his head no, and all of his mane of hair is shaking in front of his head. For those who don't know, Jacob's hair is about 30 feet long right now, and probably just going to keep getting longer. For those who want him to put it in a ponytail, make sure to like and subscribe. No. For real, though, feel free to follow along with all of our content. We'll show you back soon again with another episode. You can hit us up on Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts. Sorry. Where else are we at, Jacob? YouTube. Of course, SidelineIntel.com. Follow on Twitter. I'm at Jeff_Griffith21. He is at Jacob Rosenfarb. Very creative Twitter handle from Mr. Jacob. But I think that pretty much seals it. So I'm excited for some more basketball, Jacob. I don't know about you. I'm sure you are. But we'll be back soon, I'm sure, to kind of talk further about these semifinal series. Until then, this has been the Sideline Intel NBA podcast. Thank you for listening.